but the major causes of ADHD symptoms. And we start with an instant gratification personality. And that is, again, that's a healthy personality, but that's a personality that clashes with our environment, because it's that personality that wants it everything here and now, and interesting and fun and dangerous and novel. And our world does not really nurture that very well.
Got a lot of love, yeah, that's for sure. You got music and movies, and friends and medicine. Yeah, is the show for me and you, the one you love to listen to. And ooh, you got your friends, see it through. See, 'cause laughter is medicine too. Said it's medicine too, babe.
Hey, welcome to The Edge Show, sponsored by Off Leash Canine Training, Kara's Healthcare, and the Relevant app.
We don't dispense medical advice, and all your health choices are your own.
Yes, and the opinions expressed on the show are not necessarily those of our producer, A Edge Productions.
This is season 6, episode 12, How Can We Deal with ADHD? I'm Wendy Love Edge, and this is my co-host, Branden Lee. How are you this week, Branden?
I'm doing good, running around crazy, which is kind of ironic with what our topic is.
Yes.
I am a sufferer, I think, of ADHD, not diagnosed by any means, but I just know so many people. I think that we're kind of all ingrained with that nowadays, aren't we?
Yeah, you hear about it all the time. People use the word or the letters ADHD frequently. It may or may not be true that that's what they have, but it's a hard thing to diagnose too. I have a list of things that sort of shape what it actually means. If you have a number of these things, you may have it. So we could go through the list and see what you think.
I would love to. Yeah.
So impulsiveness is the first one on the list. The next one.
I think that a lot of people use those impulses. I started thinking about when we started thinking about ADHD and all the things that you're getting ready to list. Like, I can't help but think about social media and our how we scroll and scroll and scroll, and I think we almost give ourselves ADHD. And as you're talking about with that, it's just that little bit of change, and you want to just keep on scrolling and scrolling and get different information. And so
right.
I think we're kind of feeding our ADHD at that point.
One of our guests later in the show talks a little bit about that. And some of the reasons that through her research that she's seen that people have this ADHD. But
yeah.
I think you're right. I think about that all the time, how much I divide my attention because of social media and all of the media that's coming my way. And I know I'm not alone with that.
And all these things that you're listing off, I'm sure that they're all, they can probably go right back to social media,
Right.
But what are the other ones on the list?
So on the list also, disorganization and problems prioritizing, poor time management skills, problems focusing on a task, trouble multitasking, which I was a little surprised about that because I feel like with ADHD, or my thought is
you can like multitask. You
yes, right. Through a lot of different tasks at once, and not being able to kind of focus on one thing. But yeah, trouble multitasking, excessive activity or restlessness, poor planning, low frustration tolerance. That's what I on the list, but I don't know if you can relate to any of that. I can relate to some of it, and I don't remember when I was a child feeling that way, really. I wonder if it's been an adult start for me. I
Yeah,
don't know.
I feel you there. I have those same, you list off those things like
Mhm.
quick frustrations through the day, trying to hurry up and task a lot of things,
Right.
uh, and wrangling that and trying to keep that into your life, keep everything organized. I
Mhm.
understand that too. I think it really comes down to, as you mentioned, like when we grow up, a lot of expectations, a lot of things that we try to get done and get done
Mhm.
quickly. I think we know the path of what we do in our day, so we try to
Right.
hurry up and get it done, whether it be man in traffic because you know where you need to get,
Right.
and you're not getting there as quickly as usual. And so all these things I believe can kind of lead to more and more of a slope of ADHD.
Right.
Uh,
Right.
yeah,
Well,
and kind of organizing our life is helpful with that.
right. And I wonder, we keep saying, ADHD, or they used to separate ADD and ADHD, and I learned in the interviews that that's not really the case anymore.
Right.
But I just wonder if it's sort of modern life and what's required of all of us, with everything coming at us. We use that acronym a lot, but maybe it's not necessarily a disorder or something that needs
Right. I
to
think
be
as a
fixed. I
society,
don't know.
yeah,
Mhm.
as a society, we kind of have that in us. And I can tell you, I'm on the radio on the regular, and
Mhm.
I get a lot of those studies from Nielsen, and they talk about time spent listening, TSL, and that's all down across the board. And
Mhm.
that's not just because of less. It's down across everyone's platforms because we're so used to social media, scrolling to the next, being able to really just instantly get what we're wanting, information or just a new subject in general. And
Right.
so I believe that really does have a lot to do with feeding our attention spans, and may not be an ADD or a disorder, but
Right.
our attention spans in general have gotten smaller. And I've noticed that over the years, and maybe it's the technology and maybe it's us growing up, but I have a feeling it's a lot to do with our technology as well.
I think so. I think you hit the nail on the head. And, we talk about some other things later in the show too, like just having less time outdoors and,
Yeah,
lots of lifestyle changes that have happened in recent years, especially. But it's interesting because, the prevalence of ADHD as a actual disorder has gotten higher, and Arkansas is one of the highest. um, which was really interesting to me. 14%, a little over 14% of uh, of individuals, I think between ages of like 5 and 17. So kids,
that's a
Arkansas's
lot.
yeah, Arkansas's on the top end of the list,
Wow.
which it did surprise me because we're the natural state, and it seems like people are spending more time outdoors and maybe less on the social media, less on the computer, but maybe that's not true. I guess not. I don't know. Or is that a factor? Many people say it is. Maybe it's not. I don't know.
Yeah.
What do you think about
I
it?
do know that we're last in education too. And I
Mm,
don't know if that's a correlation of people being taught or what we're teaching in schools or how they're
mhm.
being taught at an early age. I think that could have a lot to do with it. How we deal with our problems and how we deal with daily life. We're sort of in a bubble here in Northwest Arkansas compared to the rest of the state too.
Right.
It gets a little rural once you get
Mhm.
past Little Rock and places around here. So, you start seeing that, and I really do believe that it's the way we're teaching our kids and what we describe as ADHD and prescribe that. So I think that's a lot to do with it. And
Right.
um, now it couldn't be everything. I'm not a doctor, and I don't have the statistics in front of me, but it seems like there's a correlation between that and I think the whole state suffers because of that. They really do.
Right. Yeah, I didn't realize that the state was last. I knew it was lower on the list, but that
Yeah, it's
isn't
like
yeah.
between, yeah, second to
Mhm.
last. I mean, it's at the
Mhm.
bottom for sure.
Sure, right. That's interesting. When you look at those two things together, I don't know what it means exactly, but
Yeah.
but it's something to think about for sure. And I think I think we have to really think about how we're spending our time, what we're giving attention to, because with ADHD, we're talking about inattention, the impulsivity. Some people have the hyperactivity, some
Yeah.
people don't. But it's the inattention. And so I think just personally, we have to look at ourselves and say, well, am I inattentive? Am I, I know, like for me, sometimes I might be looking at my phone. There's no reason for me to be looking at my phone, but it's a habit.
Yeah.
And
I think a lot of people have that habit.
instead of paying attention to the person in front of me, I'm for no reason like scrolling on my phone,
Yeah.
not paying attention. And that just feeds the problem,
Yeah, and the phones are a big part of it. I think a lot of people get distracted with that, and and those distractions can become habits of
Mhm.
distract. That's what
Right.
it's all about, with attention deficit. You're not able to enjoy the moments as much. So
Mhm.
being able to try to be present with that and making it a point to do that might be a good idea.
Well, coming up next, my interview with Avigail Gimpel. Joining me now is Avigail Gimpel. She is the author of Hyperhealing, the Empowered Patient's Complete Guide to Raising a Healthy Child with ADHD Symptoms. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Wendy. It's such a pleasure being here with you today.
Yes, I'm so glad you're here. We're talking about ADHD today, and we hear these letters all the time, ADHD, ADD. I think first it would be great to define what that really means. So what's the definition for ADHD or ADD, or should we be using both of those sets of letters? I don't know.
Well, the terms come in and out of style depending on what DSM you're reading that day. It
Mhm.
happens to be the DSM is the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, which is essentially the Bible of psychiatry. I'm sure
Mhm.
most people know that by now, but we're at the DSM-5, which is the latest version of it. And
Mhm.
right now, ADD is out. And ADHD, which is attention deficit hyperactivity disorder,
Mhm.
different subtypes of ADHD is the way we refer to it. So if you want to be up with the times, that's the way we discuss it.
Okay.
What it really is a descriptive diagnosis of behavioral responses to something. Essentially, it would be like diagnosing someone, let's say, that had a sore throat. We would call it, this person has a sore, scratchy throat with a little itch.
Okay.
So ADHD is you're struggling with some kind of attention deficit, and the way it's diagnosed is through a checklist of symptoms, and you'll get a
Okay.
sense of what these symptoms, and you get a sense of what subset of ADHD you have based on how many yeses you get in each subset of symptoms.
Okay.
So, and it's important for me to say that, not to belittle ADHD, which I certainly am not. That's really what I've dedicated my life to. And a
Mhm.
good number of my 6 children have been diagnosed with ADHD, as well as my husband.
Mhm.
So I would say that it's certainly a very relevant and real diagnosis, but the diagnosis itself is meaningless unless we find out why the person is exhibiting those symptoms. I do believe that the person that is diagnosed with ADHD is a healthy person. If we go, and I had put out a post on Instagram, and I was talking about how to help a child not have tantrums in the supermarket. You're a mom just like me. I don't
Yes.
know if your children tantrumed in the supermarket, but Lord knows mine did.
Yes. Yes, they
Yes.
did. Mhm.
So I was putting out some ideas of how to help a child regain control and not have tantrums, and empower a child to not have tantrums in a supermarket, which
Mhm.
to me seems like a standard thing. And having raised 6 children, most of them with ADHD, I know that this is something that could be accomplished. And my kids are healthy and empowered and doing
Mhm.
great,
Mhm.
thank God.
Yes.
But I get a response back, and I'm giving some ideas, and I
Mhm.
got some nice responses. And then one mom responds and says, or maybe we just have to accept that this is a neurodivergent way of responding. So what we're saying is I'm expecting less of the child because I've decided that the child has a challenge that they cannot overcome. And that's not something I'm willing to sign on to. I'm willing to sign on to that it's more challenging for that child because that child needs to work that muscle more. But if my kid had a hard time walking because they had loose limbs, very over flexible, one of my kids had that, I wouldn't say, okay, so we're going to give up on the walking. I'd say, let's get some occupational therapy, physical therapy, and get the kid walking. It'll take a couple more months, but she can do it. And that to me is a problem.
Yeah, I hear you, because if we accommodate too soon, right, we're just going to accommodate to all these issues that a child may have. I think we've done them a disservice, rather than, okay, this is what we're dealing with. What we may not know the exact cause, or we haven't talked about that yet, but we may not know the exact cause. That's okay. Let's see what we can do to make it better for them so they can interact with the world in a way that will help them to be productive.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's a real curse of low expectations. Instead of saying you're on a journey and every day you can get stronger, and we have no idea what your potential is. You get to decide that.
I love
We're
that.
saying we've capped your potential.
Yes. Right. So thank you for that information. I think it's really important, and it may be controversial. We can always talk about it. Today, people, instead of talking through controversy, everyone gets mad and walks away. Well, that doesn't get us anywhere, does it?
No, it's terrible. Oh my God, we are in such a mess.
Yes, for sure. So what do they know what the cause is then? If it's not in the brain, it sounds like it's not, based on the
There's a
science.
possibility that it is. I'm not saying it's
Haven't found
not.
it yet.
I'm saying we haven't fully identified that yet.
Right.
And we're leaving that open to carry on searching for it, for sure. But yeah, that's actually what I do in my book. I go through all the causes, not all of them. It's impossible to go through all of them, but the major causes of ADHD symptoms. And we start with an instant gratification personality. And that is, again, that's a healthy personality, but that's a personality that clashes with our environment, because it's that personality that wants it everything here and now, and interesting and fun and dangerous and novel. And our world does not really nurture that very well. And that's fine. Like, not every, we don't need every personality type to be nurtured, but the child who has that kind of personality is going to be slightly immature, is going to run through friendships because they're looking for that excitement. So they're going to have to learn how to do friendships better. They're going to have to learn how to become mature better. And they also are missing habits big time, because we only create habits. You and I, again, as moms, know that you have to really work hard to create habits while we're raising our children and doing anything else. And the only way we do it is by repetitive behavior. If you're instant gratification, you don't like to repeat boring behaviors. So they start tasks and then stop, and they don't like to transition because now I'm in the middle of something, mom, that's really, really fun. So leave me alone, and I'm not getting in the shower. No way. But then you finally take them with a crane, stick them in the shower, and then you can't get them out because they're having so much fun in the shower and singing and using the hot water of the entire neighborhood. So that is one challenge. And it's a healthy, challenging behavior that needs to be worked with in a very specific way. Then we have other causes like screen addiction and sleep problems. Screen addiction not only causes ADHD behavior, it also exacerbates what we would have before, which would be the instant gratification personality. So instant gratification minus screens would probably do better in school than with the screens. We also have trauma, abuse, and neglect, bullying. All that entire thing will definitely cause a child to go directly into ADHD behavior. We have sleep issues. So all of these things are going to cause ADHD symptoms.
So all of this that you're mentioning is really important when you have a child or family member who is given this diagnosis, ADHD. It seems like it's sort of, I don't know how to put it, but sort of medicalizing this, right? We're saying this is the disease, but maybe that's not really the disease. There's so many other things, components that you've mentioned.
Well, it's a very convenient diagnosis for both parent and doctor and teacher. Oh, and teacher. We're going to throw a teacher in there. And they all mean well, by the way. Everyone
right.
wants the best for the child. And I firmly believe that. And I've seen it over and over again because I work with all three groups.
Yes.
I teach teachers, actually. I'm a college teacher and I teach wonderful teachers. And I'm a teacher myself. But the thing is that when you have a diagnosis and you say, here's the diagnosis, I know why the child's struggling, there's something wrong with the brain, and I have this fix, then everyone is a little bit off the hook there. Like you don't have to look further. And you know what? Changing a kid's diet is really hard. I've done it. I've tried it. And my son was celiac. We did a very intense diet. We did raw vegan for 2 months. And juicing and
wow. How old was he when you did that? I'm just curious.
He's a superstar. He was 13 years old.
Wow. And
I said to him, we can get you down to 0. You will have no traces of autoimmunity in your blood if you stick with me for a bit. And that's what happened.
Wow. That's amazing that he was willing to do it at that age.
Remarkable. And like I said, he's a superstar. But 2 months and his body was in pristine shape, but those were 2 hard months, and then you have to maintain. So, and not only that, if you're seeing that the cause is instant gratification personality, there's a lot of work to do. You have to learn how to help your kids get new habits. The teacher has to work hard. The mom has to work. The parents have to work hard, and therefore it's very much more convenient. And and like I said, they want the best for the kid, but hearing that there's a pill that fixes this is much easier than hearing, well, you have to change the diet and you have to completely change the way you discipline your children and flip your entire discipline program on its head. Good luck.
I completely understand. And I can relate because I remember with my older son going to these IEP meetings and at school, and them suggesting maybe he needs another pill, because he's still having difficulty. And it as a parent, it's scary and disheartening, and also on the other side, the teachers have a large classroom of students. They have a lot to do. You're a teacher and a mother, and this other school of thought that you're presenting adds much more to their plate, because this diagnosis is pretty prevalent, isn't it? They may have several students in the classroom.
I have actually met with teachers of classrooms that had 50% of their class diagnosis is high school. 50%. Now that's not standard. It's more standard is 20% of boys and closer to 15% of girls, which is still outrageous.
Yes, it's a lot. One more question for you, and it's about adult diagnosis. We've been talking a lot about children and parenting and teachers. You mentioned in the beginning that your husband has ADHD. So can adults be diagnosed with this? And then are we looking at all the same kind of causes, or what are your thoughts about that?
So I actually work with adults a lot and really enjoy it. I specifically work with couples. And that's some fascinating work because they have to be reintroduced to each other's brains, basically, and different thought processes, not broken brains, but the way each of them thinks and what makes them tick. But what happens with adults is that, and generally when adults are diagnosed and they didn't have ADHD symptoms before, then it's a kind of a strange diagnosis to me, because it seems to me it's more, I call it ADHD of the 4th child. And it's just a joke I have with my students, because I have a lot of students with large families, because I'm teaching in the orthodox Jewish community, and therefore like a family of 7 kids is average. So I say to them, like, how many kids do you have? It's always 4. And I'm like, yeah, well, your plate has overflown. And therefore you have become overwhelmed. That's not a disorder. That's you need help. You need cleaning help, and you need a vacation. And also you need to learn skills of balancing more kids and more responsibility. But if I see an adult who actually had symptoms as a child, but it was missed, or they were just diagnosed as lazy, And then
Right.
therefore what
Mhm.
happens is a whole new level of complexity comes into the picture, which is the emotional stuff, the low
Mhm.
self-esteem, the worthlessness feeling, this very fixed personality. I am a this, I am a not a hard worker, I'm a failure, all that stuff. So you have to start by peeling that away. And only then could you really look at, well, what was it that caused this? Was it your personality? Was it the way you were born? Was it your environment? Was there abuse there? Was there
Mhm.
neglect? And getting to the diet, but first you got to peel off that very thick
Sure.
layer of emotional toll that this person has paid.
Right. Right. Interesting. Well, I'm so glad that you're there to help people with this. Where can people get in touch with you, and where can they find your book?
Okay, so my book is on Amazon,
Great.
and that is, and actually the book has at the end of each chapter what it was, a cheat sheet, meaning I'm writing it for parents who have ADHD themselves in
Oh,
many
nice.
cases. Well, it's it's definitely something that's passed down through the generations. We see that in my family very clearly. So I actually put out just for $1 the cheat sheets themselves. So if you want to just get a
Nice.
quick review and
Mhm.
then decide if you'd like to read the full book, the book is bigger, but
Mhm.
it really is a full coaching program. And you can go through it. I always recommend that you go through it with a group of friends, because
Nice. Mhm.
if you do with a group of friends, you make a WhatsApp group, and the friends go through it together. They read a chapter a week, and then they
Mhm.
discuss it together
Mhm.
physically, come together, see each other. That's
What?
important. Yeah, I
What?
know. Isn't that crazy? It's the only way it works. And then you do that with 2, 3 friends,
Mhm.
you're all going to succeed. If you try to do it alone, you'll do fine, but get together as a group and do it. So you
Yes.
definitely can get the book on Amazon, Hyper Healing, and but you can reach out to me at on my website, which is hyperhealing.org, and you could ask a question directly to me through the website. I always respond. I'm always happy to hear your questions or anything else.
Excellent. Well, this has been fascinating. Thank you so much for joining me, Abigail. Joining me now is Dr. Brian Nichol, and we're going to discuss ADHD and cannabis. Welcome back to the show, Dr. Nichol.
Oh, Wendy, thanks for having me back again. It's good to see you.
Yes, great to see you. We love your music and cannabis pairings, of course.
Well, that's so
Uh,
much fun to do. It really is.
yes, I bet. But we don't always get to chat with you. I really wanted to get your take. We're talking about ADHD this week, and I'd love to get your thoughts about use of cannabis to treat ADHD. Let's talk first, perhaps about adults, and then we can talk about children as well.
Well, I think as far as ADD and ADHD, kind of view them as the same type of thing, really. Really, a lot of patients do respond to cannabis. One of the interesting things as cannabis become legal in the state of Arkansas, at any rate, is patients coming in for their medical cards. The adults, when I speak to them, I'll ask them about previous cannabis use. I'm amazed at the number of adults that have been using cannabis since their teens. Initially they thought perhaps they were just using it recreationally. When you talk to them over a period of time, you find out, well, really, they were self-medicating, as we call it, using cannabis to treat their ADD and ADHD symptoms. They actually saw an improvement with cannabis. Oh, they might have thought they were just partying with it. The reason
Mhm.
they stuck with it is because it actually did help some of their symptoms. So anecdotally, a lot of patients have been using it for treatment of ADD symptoms quite successfully.
Nice.
As for the more focused medical use, I do think it has a place in it.
So how would it work for someone with ADHD? Does it calm their nervous system, or what is the mechanism of it working for that diagnosis?
Well, the actual mechanism, who really can say? I think
Mhm.
some of it is it really does help improve focus on
Okay.
what you're doing, where you're less distracted by the things that normally distract people with ADD. For me, it's anything shiny over here I see, and I'm over chasing after it, unfortunately.
Uh-huh.
CBD seems to help patients focus in on things and be less distracted. Typically, there's some anxiety and depression associated with ADD. CBD is quite effective at moderating those symptoms in a lot of patients. One of the things I found of particular use is certain terpenes. I use pinene in particular. Seems
Mm.
to really help with focus and attention with people with ADD. Wendy, I'll tell you, my mother, she's getting ready to turn 80 here very soon. She still works. She's in the magazine
Good for
publishing business,
her. Nice.
works remote from home.
Uh-huh.
When I started using CBD and pinene to control my symptoms several years ago, I gave my mom a little taste of it. Yeah, she won't live without it now. She says it
Mm.
keeps her laser focused on things.
Nice. Uh-huh.
Does make her a little bit bitchy to become impatient with people as far as getting to the point on things because you're finally thinking clear in a more focused manner.
Uh-huh.
That's the biggest side effect I see with that combination of CBD and pinene. I do believe that a THC component does help people with ADD. For many patients, just smoking cannabis or using THC tinctures is one way to do that. However, a lot of patients seem to do fine on relatively low dose THC, that you will find in a full spectrum CBD tincture.
Mm.
As I use, I find that more than adequate to control most of my symptoms.
Nice. So when we talk about children and cannabis, there's lots of controversy for many people. However, kids who are on medications, pharmaceutical drugs for ADHD, they're pretty heavy duty drugs. So I wondered what your thoughts were about using cannabis for ADHD in someone who's underage, under 18, to treat these symptoms, and if it perhaps could even be safer. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Well, when it comes down to the whole idea of using THC in children, the big concern we have as physicians is that THC is very much involved, intimately involved in the immune system. There's something called brain remodeling that occurs in children and adolescents up to about the age of, oh gosh, 22, 24 years old, maybe,
Mhm.
where different connections in the brains are established and other ones are essentially pruned. I think that's one of the reasons why adolescence is so tough for people. Your brain really is kind of screwed up, going through a lot of changes.
Mhm.
The particular cells involved in this process are called glial cells. These glial cells expose a lot of I won't get too deep in the weeds, but a particular receptor, the CB1R receptor that THC actually interacts with.
Mhm.
The idea is that when you administer THC to kids that are undergoing this brain remodeling, you may actually interfere with the connections that are
Mm.
being made and are being pruned, which could lead to issues. Um, there are statistically significant numbers that seem to show that schizophrenia may be increased in children and adolescents who use cannabis.
Mm.
It's not definitive data and all this, but it does give us pause as far as recommending THC to these individuals. You come down onto the whole risks versus benefit things as
Mhm.
far as cannabis goes versus all other medications too. In my opinion, using very low dose THC in these children, the benefit outweighs the risk. Always you
Mhm.
want to try to get by in the lowest amount of THC as you possibly can in these kids. When we start examining the risk versus benefit ratio of cannabis and THC versus that of, as you mentioned, the medications we prescribe to children for ADD and ADHD, particularly the amphetamine class of drugs, and they have
Mhm.
very, very, very significant side effects.
Right.
And I have a lot of pause about using those in children too. And
Mhm.
if I compare the two, and this is strictly my opinion now,
Sure.
when you look at the risks and benefits of cannabis on one side of the scales and the risks and benefits of the amphetamine class of drugs on the other side of the scales, to me, it kind of tilts you towards the acceptance of low dose THC as being preferable to
Mhm.
that of the prescribed drugs. Again, that is just my opinion. I'm sure you can find a lot of dissenting opinions to that.
Sure. Well, thank you so much for giving us your opinion on that. I think it's a subject that can be controversial, but knowing a little bit of the science, and like you said, we have to look at that. I think for all things that we ingest, the benefit risk ratio, figure out if the benefit outweighs the risk, and make choices accordingly. So thank you so much for that
Sure.
information. Thanks for joining me today. How can people get in touch with you?
Wendy, we're always available at our website at canvasexpertmd.com. And don't forget to follow us so you don't miss anything on
Mhm.
Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter under Canvas Expert MD. In fact, we've got coming out this week, I think, new Canna chef in Little Rock is starting to share some of his recipes with them. So don't miss it.
Oh, wonderful. Thanks for letting us know. Take care.
Miss Teddy here with your Food is Medicine Minute. Normally, I give you a list of foods to incorporate into your diet. This episode, we are talking about ADHD, and I'm going to give you a list of foods to try and stay away from. And these are ice cream, yogurt, sugar, coffee, swordfish, cheese, chocolate, soda, frozen pizza, corn, chips, most junk food, squash and other yellow vegetables, fruit juice, fast foods, and red meats. For more information on Food is Medicine, please feel free to contact me at Learn from Teddy on Facebook. Thank you.
Well, that was some great information. Always great to see Miss Teddy too, of course.
She's
I
sending
noticed.
me her book. I heard that
Uh-huh.
she made a book. I had no idea that she was an author, so I'm really stoked about some really healthy eating that she does, obviously. So
Yes.
I didn't know she made a book. She's a writer too.
Yes, she wrote a book about raw cannabis, and that's how I kind of ran into her on social media because raw cannabis, when I'm able to get it, is really helpful to me. And at the time, there weren't many people even talking about it, and I saw her book and followed her on social media. That's how we met
That's
over her
amazing.
book.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. So I'm checking that book out. I gotta read that for sure.
Yes, excellent. Um, yeah. So, have you been watching anything?
I've been watching this thing on HBO, and it's all about the rise of the Lakers. It's
Uh-huh,
called Winning Time, but
uh-huh.
it's like set like it's in the 70s, so everything's in the 70s with that
Cool.
feel and even the videography in it. And
Uh-huh,
it takes you back and it's really cool. And even if you don't like sports, or don't like the basketballs or whatever you want to do,
uh-huh.
the behind the scenes, the drama and all the stuff in it is so good and hilarious.
Oh,
Uh,
I might like it. I mean, I grew up in the
John C.
70s,
Riley. John C.
so
Riley's in it, and
cool.
he is
Uh-huh.
hilarious. Walk Hard, if you don't know that movie,
Mhm.
it's definitely hilarious. I would give it a 1 bud just because it's a series and I haven't seen it all, and I don't want to like just give up all the buds for that.
Oh,
So I'm gonna give it 1. And I heard you
okay.
were watching something really cool. Another thing, and I definitely want to see this one.
Yeah, I have. It's by Amy Schumer, and it's called Life and Beth. And of course, she's the main character. And what I really love about it is, the story is interesting and sometimes tragic, but it's also funny, and it incorporates like the effects of trauma throughout. So you can see like what her mind is bringing her back to, why the situation is so hard for her. They'll do flashbacks to her childhood of different things that happen. And so for me, always find that very interesting. I'm a multiple trauma survivor myself. And so and that happens to me, like I can see like, oh, I'm acting this way because of that, and I can stop that behavior. So I love the way it's just interwoven into this series.
What are you giving out? Are you giving it a bunch of buds up?
Oh, I'm giving it, yeah, many buds up for sure. It's definitely, the storyline itself is really interesting, and also just the characters. Like his character appears to be um somewhat maybe autistic, challenged, and she's dealing with that too. So it's got a lot. It's really meaty.
We're talking about all this entertainment and watching movies and stuff. Do you catch yourself on your phone or doing other things while you're watching movies or watching these shows?
So sometimes I have made a concerted effort not to do that anymore. But there was a period, especially during the height of the pandemic, like there's just was so much anxiety for
Oh yeah.
me and for everybody. I think,
Yeah.
we've all been through another trauma, right? It's,
Yes.
and so during those times, yeah, I'm inattentive. I'm grabbing my phone and not putting it down. And even at home, Angela will say to me, she'll actually stop if I pay my phone. She'll stop what we're watching and say,
You're like, are you watching this?
let me know when you're ready.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll feel like I'm in school again. Okay, everyone, put your pens down till
Yeah.
Wendy's ready to pay attention.
No, you're not paying attention. You got to pay attention.
Yeah. Well, coming up next, training Mary Jane. I'm Wendy Love Edge, and I'm here at Off Leash Canine Training with Shannon Quintanar, our trainer, for training Mary Jane.
Hi guys, welcome back. All right, let's get started. So today I'm going to talk about having her sit and hold that sit, as well as laying down and also holding that down while I move around. Break. So it starts with a little bit of corrections, nothing too crazy, but we're going to tell her what we're expecting. So I'm going to start with a simple Mary Jane sit. Awesome. I'm going to give her a treat, praise her for doing that. I have a super low number on the remote. I'm just going to lollygag around just a little bit, and if she stands up, I'm going to fix her back into that sit. Since she's doing wonderful right now as I'm just pacing back, I'm going to pay her a little bit of treats to tell her how good of a job she's doing. Good sit. Oh, that's okay. She fixed herself. I don't really love it, but she did it on her own, so that's all right. So here we go. Break. Let's start again. I'm going to make it a little harder now. Sit. Good sit. Oh, that's a good sit. Oh. So when this happens, you don't have to get mad. You don't have to get loud. You're just going to bring her back to the original zone, generally this area. Mary Jane, sit. Good. I gave her a small correction right there to remind her, hey, you weren't done with the job. Oh. So here we go. This is perfect. Mary Jane. Good. So I'm going to bring her back. General area. I have a little bit higher number. Mary Jane, sit. Good. You always want to restart. When she makes a mistake, it's not wrong. She's going to learn better by restarting. Good sit, Mary Jane. So I'm going to do the same thing over again. She's been unsuccessful since I've been bending over. Good job, break. She didn't mess up that time. That's when we praise her a bunch. Mary Jane, come. Yeah, good girl. Oh, she's so smart. Mary Jane, sit. Good. Oh, so right there. She got a little excited because I pumped in the air, so let me do that over again. Sit. I corrected her with the remote. She didn't mess up. Break. Perfect. So we're always going to repeat what she makes a mistake on. We're going to keep doing it over. When she doesn't make a mistake, that's when we say break, and that's when we give her treats and love and all the affection. Oh my goodness, she's the best girl. Oh, she's the best girl. Break. Yeah. Ready? Sit. Now let's try it down. Down. Good down. Good down. Up. Down. So I corrected her right there. Her booty popped in the air. Good girl. Good down. Ooh, that's a good down. Up. Down. So I didn't give her a treat because she popped up for that right there. I do want to let her know what I'm looking for gets paid money, but if you pop up, you're not going to get paid. Good down. So I'm going to try it over again. Let's give her a treat. Good down. Now I'm going to walk away and squat. Up. So we're going to bring her back to the original zone. Sit. Down. Good down. I'm going to do the same thing over again. Oh. Ooh. Break. Yeah, that's a good girl. Mary Jane, come. Sit. Down. Good down, girlfriend. So now I'm going to try and walk around her. Good down. That's a good down, Mary Jane. Let me see if I can open this baby gate. Good down. Ooh, what a good dog. And now I'm gonna release her. Break. Yeah, what a good girl, Mary Jane.
Well, this has been absolutely amazing at Off Leash Canine Training here in Fayetteville. Shannon, our trainer, thank you so much.
Definitely.
It's so much nicer at home with Mary Jane, and when we take her out, she's definitely come a long way. This has been Training Mary Jane.
I'm Dr. Brian Nichol, your cannabis expert for CannabisExpertMD.com with a music and cannabis pairing for The Edge Show. This week's musical guest is Wendy Patrice. Now, she's from Memphis, Tennessee. She is a singer-songwriter, also a pianist and performer, in kind of a pop rap kind of style is how she's described. She's a full-on entertainer. She incorporates her dance choreography and actually majorette skills into her stage performance. Wendy has a very long list of accolades with high profile for performances ranging from Fashion Week performances to actually credited Super Bowl shows. Now, a quick look at her website shows more than 50 songs available to stream. Many seem to really combine an urban pop, R&B, and rap kind of feel to them. I listened to Life Without Me. Now, it's a soulful look back at overcoming the many difficulties people face in their life. It's very, very nicely produced with a strong emotional performance from Wendy. Kind of a rhythm and blues soul kind of vibe to it, at least in my impression. It really has a great track that serves well with the layered vocals that she has laid over this particular track. For this, I was looking for a relaxing strain to enjoy with really Wendy's smooth presentation, and that you can be grateful for overcoming all the difficulties in your life and the many that you did not have to face that others did. For this, I was looking based on the cannabinoid terpene profiles available to me, natural state medicinal strawberry cough. Now, strawberry cough is potent at 21% total THC. A little bit of trace CBD is present. Terpenes show a respectable, not very high, but pretty respectable 0.81%. It is terpinolene dominant at 0.46%. Beta-caryophyllene is up next at 0.18%. Humulene barely makes a showing at 0.05%. The other terpenes are really present in levels low enough that we really don't expect them to have much of an effect. Now, strawberry cough, this should be a mostly cerebral kind of high that will be caused by the THC. It's going to give you kind of a happy, chill, smiley base due to the terpinolene. Beta-caryophyllene is going to chase away any depression and perhaps some anxiety you may be experiencing. And that just little bit of humulene in there, it might keep you out of the fridge a bit. Now, strawberry cough should be just the strain that will be nice, relaxing, and chill, but not terribly sedating. Should let you sit back and enjoy Wendy's really fine performance. For more information on all things medical cannabis, be sure to check us out at CannabisExpertMD.com. We're also available on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter under Cannabis Expert MD. Now I present to you Wendy Patrice with Life Without Me.
like many nights. I just can't stand to rewind. Sorry, just ain't gon' cut it now. So ashamed, how did I do this? I did everything to hide, I wish I never hurt me. It's a life without me. It's a life without me. It's a life without me. Where's my best friend? I'm right here behind you. I never missed a scene, even though you treated me mean. Never gave a damn, but I stayed and loved on me. And I let me drown in someone else's misery. I'm picking up the pieces and throughout myself. Which way? Who's gonna verify my body? 'Cause I didn't recognize myself anyway. Sorry, just ain't gon' cut it. No. So ashamed, how did I do this? I did everything to hide, I wish I never hurt me. It's a life without me. It's a life without me. It's a life without me.
Hi, I'm Candice Dyer,
And I'm Wendy Love Edge.
and this is Mile High News.
So, Candice, what cannabis news do you have for us this week?
Well, Wendy, today's cannabis news is out of marijuana movement. Top federal drug officials blow senators' mind by revealing that marijuana legalization doesn't increase teen use.
Wow, it doesn't increase teen use. After all that hype and people saying it definitely would, that's amazing.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah. Don't legalize it because all the kids will start using it then.
Mhm.
It's like, so we now are finding out that a top federal drug official said that adolescent marijuana use has not increased in legal states, much to the surprise of the senator, who said that he expected that it would be based on the alcohol trends that they've seen.
Mhm.
The National Institute on Drug Abuse, the NIDA, Director Nora Valcrow addressed the issue at a hearing before the Senate Health, Education, Labor Petitions, or HELP Committee. She did realize concerns about health risks of cannabis overall, but made clear that the evidence doesn't support it.
Well, I mean, I'm glad that they did the study and proved it. I really never saw the connection to begin with because I was like, well, okay, so when it wasn't legal, like when I grew up in the 70s, the kids all had access to it, you
Right.
know. So I couldn't really see the connection why legalization would make it more available to underage users. It just really never made any sense to me anyways.
Exactly.
Mhm.
And like, it's like, no dispensary is going to let a child walk in and buy weed.
Right.
They're going to get it on the streets. They're not carting them on the streets. Like, that's where they're getting it. The dispensary ain't going to make a difference.
Right. Well, I mean, think about it. To get in the dispensary, you have to ring the bell, show your card. Like it's not an easy process. They're certainly not going to be letting underage people
Right,
without cards come in. So I don't get it.
right.
But
Exactly. One of the most recent federally funded surveys on the topic stressed that young cannabis use decreased significantly in 2021, as did teen consumption of substance overall, along with several other studies saying the same thing. Now that we can do research and learn more about cannabis every day, we are learning that it's not a scary thing like prohibitionists have been trying to make it sound. Cannabis still has never killed anybody, and it's more safer than peanuts.
that's true. It is safer than peanuts.
This has been Mile High News on The Edge Show. I'm Candis Dyer. Stay lit, everyone.
Well, what a great show it's been. Do you have any final thoughts, Branden, about ADHD?
Yeah, obviously not everyone is diagnosed by a doctor with ADHD. I think we all have some attention deficit that we have to address in our lives. And I think a lot of people go through those motions and get really frustrated or lose hope or have a lot of just bad times when it comes to attention and keeping attention and watching life pass them by sometimes, not being present in the moment. So, I think really what has helped in my attention deficits that go on throughout the day with all our social media and all the things that really everyone suffers from is making sure that your schedule is there, really planning ahead and planning your day and making time for even the things that you love. A lot of people always think of making time and setting out stuff and being really nervous about working, but I remember like being too much enthralled into that and getting more frustrated about and keeping attention. So doing the things that you love can possibly help you with all of that stuff. And talk to your doctor if you really do feel like you're suffering and you're having some problems. There is some help out there medicinally, and there are some natural remedies as well. So definitely talk to your doctor about that.
Yeah, and I think our guests gave us some tips and some help. Certainly, Dr. Nichol talking about cannabis and ADHD, natural. I'm always for plant medicine first, but sometimes pharmaceuticals have their place. But I think we also presented some other options for people. And like you said, always, check with your health professionals, your healers, whoever you go to for advice. Having lived, I'm 57, right? And I don't remember having this sort of inattention until recent years. So I think it's really important to kind of evaluate and assess how you're living your life. Why, if you're feeling inattentive or like maybe you have ADHD, kind of look at all the reasons why you're feeling that way and what you can do about it. Because after all, our health and wellness is largely in our own hands. Well, have a great week, everyone. Bye. The Ed Show is sponsored in part by Caris Healthcare, The Relevant App, Lit Premium Smoking Supplies, 131 Inclusion Gallery, Irie Bliss Wellness, The Balm Cannabis Body Care, Lindsay Camp with Synergy One Lending, Off Leash Canine Training, and Green Harvest Health, inviting you to reclaim your wellness.